Hi, it's Ken, WashingtonCoinLaundry.com. I wanted to get back to something really, it's something you need to look at the start. Before you really dive into business, there's some things you need to know before opening a business. A lot of these are pitfalls that people run into. Uh, they get part of the way in and then they realize they need to do it, and they might not have budgeted for it, or they just get caught on a bunch of things. So we'll do the top 10 list because everybody likes top 10 lists. So these items are targeted to laundromats, but they apply to most brick and mortar businesses. My contact information is there. I'll put it down below this video as well. You reach me at ken@washingtoncoinlaundry.com, 800-792-1941, extension 2, and again, the information is available on laundromathowto.com. So the first thing before you open any business is, what's your why? This is probably the most important part to any business. You got to ask yourself, why do I want to do this? Why do I want to quit my corporate job and open a business, or start a business from scratch, work a business online, open a laundromat? Why do I want to do it? And you're really the only one who can answer that. What's your driving force? You might have some input from your family or friends, but ultimately you're the one that you'll be the driving force behind it all. So you just need to ask yourself, why do I want to do this? I want to own a laundromat. Why? Because I want to make money. You make money doing a lot of stuff. Why is this what you're looking at? It may be, a lot of people they think initially, I want to do it because I want to make money, but what do you want to do with the money? Maybe it's more of, I want to make money so I can pay down some bills, have more free time with my family, or have a passive income business that I don't have to be at every day. I can stop by when I want to. I might have to be there certain times of the week, but it's on my schedule. So that's the most important thing to dive into. Why do you want to do it? And again, it could be any business, but if you don't know what your why is, then how do you know what's going to drive you to the end when you hit those rough spots? What's going to drive you past it? There's all kinds of issues you can run into. What's going to be that goal that you're going to look at the end of it and go, I'm doing this because of blank? Again, you can talk to other people and you want to get some input, family and friends, but you're the one who needs to know what that is. Spread it with your family. Let your spouse know. That's the goal. That's why we're stumbling through this. That's where we're going to go. We might have some rough spots between here and there, but that's where we're going. Then we get into, what do we need to really set this up? CPA, Certified Public Accountants. You're running a business, not a hobby. If you're running a hobby, keep doing it out of your garage. Keep doing what you're doing. It's a hobby, you're not making money. You're not paying your bills. It might be fun, you might enjoy it, but it's not a business. You need to get set up right and get the right advice up front. Make sure all your information's set up right. They set up your books initially. I use QuickBooks myself. It's set up. You can download the information from the bank. It goes all into the right place. You don't need to be an accountant to understand how to do that. I do a lot of my own basic bookkeeping. And again, it's just watching the bank accounts, paying the bills, pulling the money down into QuickBooks, looking at the charts and graphs to be able to get an understanding of where the money's going. I'm the only one who cares. At the end of the day, I'm the one who cares that where it's going is in the right spot, and I'm the one that's making the decisions on it. So, your accountant will care. Your people who work for you care a little bit, but nobody really cares about it as much as you do. And again, you don't have to understand. You don't have to be an accountant. You do need to understand, how much money are you paying out? How much money's coming in? What are your supplies worth? Are you spending too much on supplies? As your months go by, are your numbers really where they are? Once you understand that, then you can see how to improve, and you'll be able to track when you do improve. The other part with the accountant, they're going to understand what's deductible. You want to stay on the right side of the IRS. Paying taxes, it's the law. You need to do it. You need to do it right. So make sure you're set up right. There's things accountants do. If you're an accountant and you want to run a laundry and do your own books, great. Not too many of us are. So get it set up right. depreciations, deductibles, how you subtract stuff, deductible so much, but depreciations, how things are taxed, any government programs that allow you to depreciate X, maybe 150% one year and instead of the normal 100%, or 20% a year, or 30% a year. It might changes all the time. Make sure you got a professional looking at that to understand how it's set up and to get you in the best position to keep the most money at the end of the day. The other one is an attorney. Initially, when you're setting these up, your attorney and your accountant need to somewhat work together so you both know that everybody knows how it's getting set up, so it's set up right from the tax standpoint and the legal standpoint. You want to make sure you pay the least amount of taxes. You're protected against slips, falls, injuries, lawsuits, whatever you want to, whatever somebody wants to decide they want to get some of your business, whether it's the government, somebody, one of your customers, etc. You need to be set up properly. My particular situation, I'm the owner of the company. We set up a corporation called K-Bar Inc. You'll see some of my emails will actually come in as Ken at K-Bar Inc. And then we've got businesses underneath that. Each one of these is a separate wash and coin laundry. They're a separate LLC. The advantage of this is it separates your businesses. A lot of laundry owners and small business, laundry owners mostly, because they tend to get into more than one location. They'll set up one location, then they open another laundry and they just dump everything into the same pile. And they're just running Bob's Laundry in 3 different locations. The problem with that, A, is you've got to keep them separate to really understand which one's making money and which one isn't. If you do want to sell one, keeping them separate keeps your books separate, keeps all the information separate. It's a standalone business set up as its own LLC. You can easily sell that to somebody and transfer it over. There might be it's possible there's some loans that have your name on them you may need to work around, but if you've got your lease set up through your corporation and your LLC and all your utilities and everything else, someone can write you a check, buy that business, open a bank account, and just pay the bills. It's a clean cut. They're in, you're out, it's done. If your stuff's all mixed up together, it's going to be hard to sell. They're not going to know if the numbers are true. Your accountant's certainly not going to be able to say, here's a certified copy of the books if they're all just mashed into one. So then it becomes that you're selling it all or nothing. So get those set up right. The other part is set up this way. The corporation pays taxes, not the individual LLCs. So if business number 1 has a really great year, business number 2 needs some new equipment to upgrade. That money gets transferred into the corporation reinvests it into the other business. It hasn't got to you, the owner, yet, so the taxes aren't due on it because it's all happening inside the business, inside the corporation. So it allows some stuff to move around inside there. And like I said, you may have some loans on one business and making good profits on the other one. You want to pay them down. You don't want to pull that money out, pay taxes on it, and then try and pay your loans with after-tax money. It just, you're losing money every time you do that. So as far as setting up, you can use an attorney. It needs to be set up right. You can do it online. You can do it local. All mine have been set up locally. I'm open up a small local business. I want people local to me to use my company. If I'm opening up a laundromat, people are going to be local. I can't sell coin laundry's services online. So if I'm going to set up a business and I want the local community to support me, it only makes sense to support the local community setting it up. So I use a local attorney. I can go over there, I can talk to them, I can lay this out on a sheet of paper and say, this is how I want it set up. Sometimes, when you're sitting with your accountant and your attorneys, you might tell them this is how I want it set up, and they're saying, well, no, it's easier this way, or it's easier that way. They might not see the whole picture like you do, that, okay, I'm only setting up one laundry initially, but I want to be set up from the start to add 3, 4, 5, 6 more laundries. And I don't want to have to try and reestablish my whole business doing it. And I don't want to own a laundry. I want to own a corporation that owns laundries. If I buy the building my laundromat's in, That's going to be set up as a separate LLC as well. Same corporation, separate LLC. Again, it keeps them all separate. I can sell the laundry and keep the building. I can sell the building and keep the laundry, or I can sell it all as a package. So you've got to think that way. Every part of your business needs to be its own compartment, and your CPA will make sure you're going to have separate bank accounts for everything, but they're going to treat them like separate businesses, not just one big business. Next thing to look at is business licenses. City, county, state, everybody wants a license. Everybody wants their $100, $50, $75, whatever they charge. Understand them up front. Talk to your CPA, talk to your attorney, talk to your local. Usually if you get to the city, they'll start telling you what the county needs. The county will tell you what the state needs. Do a little bit of research, make sure you got all the right licenses in place. Post them if you need to. In an unattended coin laundry, it's going to be hard to post them up, but keep them in the office, keep them handy if you do get questioned. You want to make sure you've got them and they're up to date. Next one is getting into bank accounts. You need to set up a commercial bank account. Again, you're going to have one of these for every one of your LLCs and every one of your corporations. They're all going to be separate bank accounts. Excuse me. This will take a bit to explain to your bank too, because initially you're going to set up your corporate bank account. And then when you set up your LLC bank account, the owner of that bank account is the corporation. You are only the president or the signer or the secretary or treasurer, whatever role you play in that business, but you don't own that business. So draw it out on a sheet of paper if you have to. When you go into the bank, make sure it's set up right. If not, then you're defeating the whole purpose of keeping yourself separate from the laundry. If somebody slips and falls in your laundry, you don't want them to sue you and take your house. You've got to keep them separate. Keep those walls of protection between you. And don't mess it up because the bank put the numbers in the wrong spot. Look and read the paperwork. Make sure it's set up that your corporation owns the laundries, you own the corporation. So again, separate bank accounts. Each one's going to be a business bank account. You can get a debit card for each one. It's a simple, easy way. Probably not going to be able to get Visa cards, MasterCards, credit cards. In some case, you're going to end up using your own. You want to talk to your accountant on how to set that up so that if you do use your own to buy something specific for the business, it gets put correctly into your business account and paid for correctly from your business account. Something you want to try and avoid doing if you can. Excuse me, but it may have to happen. Again, separate debit cards. I do all my banking online. I pay my bills through my bank. They write the checks. If I do have to go into Home Depot or whatever, something local, I use my debit card. It all goes into the bank. I can download that all into QuickBooks, and it all goes into the right spots. It's a very simple process. Then we just check it at the end. I'm using QuickBooks kind of backwards. I don't use it to run the business. I use it to monitor how the business is being run. So a little different, but if you're not really familiar with QuickBooks, or you're not an accountant, it's a simple way to do it. Confirm your bank has no fees to accept large amounts of cash and quarters. Some banks will only take coins if they're rolled. Some banks, they're only going to let you drop off so many at a time. The bank I deal with, they have a number of branches. I deal with the main branch. They'll take whatever I take in. If I get along well with the tellers enough, I've come in there before where I've come straight from a laundry and literally pulled the money out of the change machine, set it down. It wasn't even sorted. And we just kind of split the pile and sorted it while I stood there. And they give me a bit of a hard time, but I don't do it all the time, but once in a while it's nice to have that relationship that, I didn't have time to sit in the parking lot and count the money on my lap in the car. So, but I can take loose quarters in there. Now again, with laundromats, depending on how it runs, you may have a lot of quarters, you might not have that many, but if I do take them in, they know they're coming in, they're all separated, they'll go in the back and they'll roll them for me right there. It takes a few minutes, they're done, it's all counted and finished. So see if they offer that service. But again, if I go to one of the local branches of that same bank, they won't. They have to be rolled. They don't take them loose. So, and you want to choose a business-friendly bank. Local banks are going to be there's various discussions on this. Bigger banks have their options, their benefits. If you move around and you have different locations, you can use different branches. I use a local bank, works well for me. I never have to stand in line for tellers. They've, been really well for me. The thing though, too, if you go into a lot of banks and say, I want to open up a laundry, they're going to say, well, that's nice. We'll set you up a bank account, but we're not loaning you any money. Don't be surprised by that. The reaction I still get even after being in business for quite a few years is, what would we do with used laundry equipment? I said, well, I don't plan on ever giving you used laundry equipment. I'm planning on keeping it. But they do have to look after their interests, and they don't loan against equipment. The bank I deal with, they loan against land, business buildings, maybe small businesses, and residential. So they may support you in the future, but you're going to have to build a relationship with them. They're probably not going to be laundromat friendly or any small business loan friendly initially. Next step we get into is insurance. The coin laundry industry, there's a lot of variables. Many other industries, there's going to be variables too. Your hours of operation, how much inventory you have in the store. If you have a drop-off service, you're going to be paying insurance on the clothes that are left there overnight. It doesn't take long to have $10,000 worth of clothes hanging up on a rack. Look in your own closet, you'd be surprised what it would cost to replace what's in there. The amount of income you have in a year is going to be a factor. The equipment replacement costs, is it new, is it old? How new is it? What's the age of your equipment? What's the size of your equipment? It's all going to factor in. Make sure you've got enough to replace your equipment. If you've got a 10-year-old top-load washing machine, you want to be able to buy a brand new top-load washing machine. You don't want to have to, well, here's your $200 check. Now go ahead and spend $900 on a new machine. Make sure you've got enough coverage for a catastrophic situation. Your store is completely gutted by fire, that you can stand outside and watch a contractor rebuild your store, and your insurance company write them a check, and you get back into business. You don't want to have to be in there hammering the nails yourself, pulling wire, polishing the floor, because you don't have enough insurance to get yourself back in shape. Any previous claims are going to factor into that. They may deny you any coverage at all if you've got too many previous claims, or it's probably going to greatly affect your deductible. Credit score, you're a small business, you're going to be a factor in it. They're going to look at you, are you paying your bills? It's how it is. You're a small business. It's going to be a long time before you get actually out of the business. And whether you have employees or not, how long during the day your store is occupied with attendants, how long it's open. My case is I'm open 24 hours. I only have attendants in one store for 11 hours of the day. So, when I went to 24 hours, it made a small difference. It wasn't a big difference, but it did make a difference. There's different places to get them. The place you get your car insurance, your home insurance, probably isn't going to insure your business. You're going to have to go to more of a business type insurance. Go to a broker, see what they can find. Trade organizations, almost every business has some sort of trade organization. The Coin Laundry, it's the Coin Laundry Association. They have their own insurance program. They search it out. Some cases I've heard they're good. Some cases I've heard they're the cheapest. They're not the cheapest. It's really all over. What might be a good deal for you, maybe is something that another guy doesn't get quite the deal on, but you don't know all of his details. So I found myself, they have pretty good rates. They're easy to just renew. They offer various payment packages. One thing each year, a lot of times insurances just roll over. They don't check to see if you've made any changes. You might have put some new equipment in, you might have changed your hours, you might have hired more people. They don't know that unless you tell them. So just make sure when you are getting your insurance, they'll tell you to read through the package, which is an inch thick, and make sure it's got all the right coverages. That gets kind of hard, but you do want to make sure those numbers fit. And if you switched over to 24 hours, but you're still only insured for a 18-hour day store, if you have a problem in the middle of the night, they might say, well, sorry, you never told us you went to 24 hours. So don't think of it, they're just trying to rip you off. They're just trying to base your insurance based on what you told them. If your variables change, you need to tell them so they can make the correct changes. Taxes. Taxes, taxes, taxes. city, county, state, federal, sales tax, business privilege tax, equipment tax, employee withholding tax, taxes on tax. There's all kinds out there. That's why you have a good CPA. Some of these you can do yourself. Some are employee specific. Other ones you don't know about till they show up. And equipment tax is one of those. The bill, everybody's used to property taxes on a building, and you build a laundromat and you put a couple $100,000 worth of equipment in it, and then your county sends out a little form saying, well, tell us what business you have in there because you have your business license in our county. And you give that to your CPA and they fill it all out, and then the county says, okay, you owe us $800, $1,000, $2,000 worth of taxes, yearly taxes, because you have equipment operating in the county. It's not something you want to get caught by surprise on, and the form's got to be filled out every year. Get your CPA involved, understand what they are, and budget for them. It's part of doing business. Various state, county, federal, they're going to, again, change depending on whether it's an employee tax or it's just your regular taxes every year. Demographics. Businesses like real estate. Location, location, location. Coin laundries are a destination location. People aren't driving along, see a guy standing at the side of the road swinging a sign saying, Coin Laundry, come on in, we're open. Hey, I think I'll shoot in and do my laundry. I got a few minutes. It doesn't happen. Now, they might see your sign and say, I got to drop off a comforter. And they'll drive by the next day, I got to drop off a comforter. And after a while, they might actually drop it off. But 95% of your customers, 99% are coming to your store because they need to do laundry. You're going to be a destination location. It doesn't mean they're going to find you tucked down the back end of a strip mall in around the back corner because there's a little tiny sign at the road. You want to make sure you got the right signage, but you got to make sure you've got the people. You're making a large investment of time or money, possibly both. Basing that on, I think this would be a great spot to put blank business is not a good way to start a business. Check the numbers, run the demographics. If you need demographics for laundries, you want to buy some new equipment, give me a call. We'll get some demographics run. If it's a different type of business, it's going to be different demographics. You got to understand what your demographics are and who you're selling to, who's your customer. So there's some variations. Laundries look at number of renters, number of homeowners, income levels, and they vary depending on whether it's a very heavy urban location or if it's a rural location. Are you looking at a half a mile range? You're looking at a 10-mile range. I'm on the edge of a decent size city, but I get people coming 15 miles from the country because I'm the closest laundry. Would it be a great spot to put a laundry in a small town 10 miles from here? Maybe. I'll get somebody coming in going, hey, you should put a laundromat in this town. They really need one. If the demographics don't work, it's not going to work. Now, the demographics might say, yeah, it's okay. It's a great place for laundry, but it needs to be this big, or it needs to be 1,000 square feet. You're going to put in a dozen machines. And as long as you get really good rent, you might do okay. But it's not going to handle a 4,000 square foot store with 80 machines. So your demographics tell you a lot about that location. You're still going to have visibility issues, stuff like that. You want to make sure you are somewhere you can be seen, you got good parking, etc. But your business has to be where the people are. They'll drive a little bit to get you. They don't want to have to drive all the way across town. So find out where the places are. Make sure your numbers work. And again, don't base your future on where you think a good laundry would go. Thinking is a good way to come up with a place, but don't make your decisions on thinking. Make it on numbers, because your bank's going to, and your loans, all that stuff. The worst case, get into a small business and not borrow money. It seems strange, but a lot of people who don't borrow money don't have to do the research they need to get into business. So therefore, the numbers don't work because they never had the numbers checked. We'll go into a little bit of that later on. But Planning, zoning, and building. Talk to these guys early. Talk nice. Electrical, structural, gas piping, signs, restrooms, accessibility for ADA, zoning restrictions. That's what they do. Building inspectors, planning, zoning committees, they're there in place to keep the city moving in the right direction, keep things safe, make sure businesses are built so people can use them safely. Go talk to them early. If you're looking at find a location, if for example, I built my first laundry, distributor had already sort of secured the location. You know, he had an agreement with the landlord that the landlord wouldn't market the spot, and if somebody did come forward, that the landlord would direct him to the distributor. So I get in there, went in, looked through all the numbers, worked our way through it for a month or two, signed an intent to lease, which gave me a chance to look at all the numbers and bought me, you know, a couple of months with the landlord saying, okay, I'll give you an intent to lease based on these numbers, which means you're not going to try and market this to anybody else for 2 or 3 months, and if it doesn't work, then I can get out and you can carry on. I immediately left there, went straight to the building department, walked in and said, here's the address, here's what I'm planning on doing, what do you want to see? Right off the bat, first off, they're usually speechless. And this guy was. He's like, wow, nobody's ever done that before. Usually we drive by and see him renovating it and then got to go in and we're the bad guy because we shut him down. So, you know, they went in, they looked in some of the books. There was a small restroom in the back corner. The place had been a laundry, been shut down for 5 years. And we're going back in, we're putting another laundry in there. Because it didn't change use, I didn't have to install a male and a female ADA accessible restroom. Probably saved me $10,000. And the layout would have been very difficult to put it in without a lot of renovation, and I would have lost space. But if somebody had went in there and ran it as an alteration shop for a month, then it had changed use, I would have had to meet the new requirements. The other part with the zoning is the area I'm in is not zoned for coin laundries. But it hadn't changed use, so it was grandfathered in. Again, if somebody had went in there in the last 5 years, ran an alteration shop for a month, and left, I could have never put a coin laundry back in there, and nobody else could either. It's great for competition because I don't have any. Nobody else can build one in that particular area. So it's good that way, but again, you got to know this stuff. You don't want to get hooked into a building and start doing renovations, all that stuff, and they come in and say, well, no, wait a minute, you got to put in another bathroom. So now that money you might have saved up front, you know, now you might have 3 washing machines you don't have room for, and you've got to redo some gas piping, you've got to redo some water piping, you got to cut drains in the floor just as you're about ready to open. So talk to these guys, get your permits, know what they're going to want ahead of time, deal with good contractors, and it'll go along smooth. The last thing you want to do is have the building inspector, you know, driving up to you going, hey, what are you doing? Well, I'm just putting in laundry. No, you're not. So talk to them early, get along well with them, and things will go smooth. Anytime I've had that approach with a building inspector, it's worked out well. Building houses, etc. You go in there and they know who you are. Ask them. That's their job. They're not there to punish you. They're there to help you through and make sure it's done right and it's done safe. And one other part, the mentor. Where do you go for advice and support? You're going to have questions. You have all kinds of questions. You know, it might be a friend in a similar business, or it might be somebody you know who's very successful at business, who, if they're successful at business, a lot of times the information they have can be applied to different businesses. There's still going to be some details specific, but they understand business. And, you know, you may have to buy them lunch. You might have to, you know, bug them once in a while, like I did previously with one of the mentors I worked with early on. I drove around with him in his truck when he went to his laundries, just asked him questions. Just, you know, when he was there, I'm peeking around, asking him stuff, driving him nuts. But it was, you know, I got a lot of basic information before I ever got into it. Other things you get into is trade organizations. A lot of times they'll have information. Your distributor. A good distributor is going to help you with your business. Not going to just sell you equipment. I'm not saying there isn't some good distributors that just sell equipment, but you're trying to build a business. Find somebody who's going to help you through it. It's going to work through. If you got a question, you can send them an email and say, hey, I got an issue with this. What do you think I should do? They're going to help you build a business. They're not going to build it for you, unless in some cases you do have that turnkey. We'll build it, we'll run it for you. A lot of cases it's advice you're looking for, not decision making. So if you truly want to build it up and understand it and run it more yourself, make sure you ask the right questions and have somebody to ask them for. There's lots of stuff out on the internet. Make sure it's good, double check it. You can double check my stuff if you want. If there's an issue, let me know and I'll make sure some upgrades go in. But check the forums. Trade organizations, again, there's some consultants out there they can charge you. A lot of times they're well worth their money, but you want to make sure you've got a list of questions and you know what you're going to ask. Make the most efficient use of the time if you are paying for it. And if it is mentoring from just someone who's a businessman or whatever, and they're willing to give that information, have respect with their time. Have some questions, maybe email them ahead of time, say, hey, can I have an hour of your time? Here's a list of questions I want to cover. And so, they can read up on it when they sit down. They've got an idea what they want to say. It just makes it work for everybody. You look professional. They're making good use of their time. They have the right answers, and they don't have to say, well, let me get back to you on that, and then spend more time than they really had planned to put into it. Other places you can go, a lot of the universities have SCORE. I can look up just what it is. I'll put the link below this. But it's retired executives work a lot of universities. It's part of the Small Business Association or administration. You can go in there with business plans and they'll review them. They'll help you work through them. The one situation I worked with one guy. We worked through a whole business plan, the numbers and everything else, and he, told me what needed to stand out and all that. And then once we had something that we were really comfortable with, he gave it to somebody who had never seen it. And that guy read through it like he was going to approve a bank loan. And he scratched it up and scratched some things out and said, I don't care about this, I don't care about this, make this page bigger, I want to be able to read these numbers. So they came back saying, here's what you need to do and improve and change it. And it worked well. When I went in, I took that information, went in for an economic development loan, and they told me it was the smoothest one they've ever done. They had all the information they need when they went to their committee to review it. They had everything they needed. It was laid out, it was professional. They had no concerns at all. And I actually paid off that loan about 4 or 5 months early. And anytime I see them, they said, hey, when you want some more money, just call us. So that's where you want to be. Be professional. You are opening a business. Get the right information. So that's covering the top things to know. Again, it's focused mostly on laundromats, but it covers a lot of small businesses need the same information. If you are looking for information on laundromat renovations, operations, management, etc., laundromathowto.com. I'll keep updating these videos. If you have suggestions, send me an email, put some comments in. I'll add it in there. We'll add more blogs. Whatever we need to do to get the information out there and help people out. I hate to see people starting this kind of business and fail and lose their life savings or their family's life savings. That's not the way you want to go. You want to go in with the right information, build the right stores, build up this industry so it's better for everybody, and just at the end of the day have a good, successful place you can call your own and be proud of. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below or send me an email or give me a call. Thanks a lot for your time.